Hi guys, welcome back to Thursday Top Lessons. My name is Anirudh and hope you've liked the video so far. Please do subscribe to our channel. Remember in our video of how do central banks work, we talked about D. Subbarao's take on macroeconomics, which was our economics 101. This week we are going to take it a notch further with his successor's book Raghuram Rajan in I Do What I Do. So I Do What I Do is basically a compilation of his thoughts and lectures and speeches and articles at various forums. The thoughts and ideas that he presents are quite impressive, straightforward and based on the available facts. Remember how D. Subbarao mentioned everywhere in the world the future is uncertain, but in India even the past is uncertain. So it is always about available facts. Here it goes. So before we get to the economics piece of it, let us first clarify his sort of arrogant stance on the title I Do What I Do. So he says on one of his media interactions, he was asked whether he would be dovish like Yellen or he would be hawkish like Walker. He said, I wanted to push back an attempt to pigeonhole me into existing stereotypes. Somewhat jokingly, I started in James Bondish vein saying, my name is Raghuram Rajan. And to my horror, he says, mid-sentenced, I realized I did not know how to end in a way that did not reveal more on the monetary policy than he intended to. So with cameras focused on me, I ended lamely and I do what I do. So first, how do we get things done? He says that whenever you embark on a set of actions in public life in India, it always helps to have a report recommending the actions. He said that it indicated that wise people have deeply thought about the problem and it gives your action some amount of legitimacy. So similar multiple instances have happened in business world as well. That's why we have consultants, right? Is it an efficient way? I don't know, the jury is still out, but it is definitely an effective way to get things done. Now remember in the last video how we talked about the fiscal versus monetary policy. He says that he was the last governor to set the policy individually. The government nominated its appointees to the Monetary Policy Committee, which is the MPC, soon after he left office. Okay. Now getting to the main focus of Reserve Bank or any central bank is battling inflation, as we mentioned in the last video. So he says that beating inflation via an illusion of even higher impending inflation leads to an inflationary spiral inhibiting the growth. Too much inflation, right? But do lower interest rates actually help beating this inflationary spiral? He says that they do not really motivate the industries to invest more. Also, reducing the interest rates during inflation doesn't make sense, as the depositor puts a floor to basic rate that has to beat the inflation, right? Which leads them to invest in real assets rather than financial assets. This leads to borrowing to trigger the financial growth. But the central bank may have its own repo rate and reverse repo rate. How does it actually impact us as basic investors and borrowers? So let's try and cover what does our interest rate actually constitute of. So our interest rate that we pay on a borrowing is basically a default risk premium, which is the likelihood of you or me defaulting on a loan. The second component of this is a term premium. That means the duration for which you are borrowing, there might be certain uncertainties that are predicted, which the lender has to cover for. Next part is the inflation risk premium, which is the possibility of inflation during that tenure. And finally, the bank's compensation of the cost it has to incur in doing all the admin related work and get that sum to you. So none of this is actually directly affected by the policy rate, but it is always good to know what you're paying for. Now let's try and answer an important question regarding the most basic thing that we need, food, right? So inflation directly to us as a consumer, or the most impact that inflation has on general public is via food. The government sets up its MSP in India for certain commodities, and this is how it impacts the inflation. So the MSP is set by CACP, which is a government body. Now MSP basically skews the farm production to certain commodities like wheat or rice, where the farmer sees maximum gain. but this leads to a suboptimal mix of the overall production, and it further fuels inflation in those parts of the commodity bucket. So a generalization here, which is a myth that he busts, is if food prices or short-term spikes in the food price cannot be controlled by the central bank, it cannot really control any inflation in general, which is absolutely wrong. Now let's understand what financial inclusion actually means. He simplifies it beautifully. He says financial inclusion is just broadening for people without any access, deepening for people with minimal access, and greater financial literacy to make an apt choice. To ensure inclusion, mandates can only work to a certain extent, right? You can simply mandate a policy change for banks to have X number of customers, but to achieve that in reality on ground, you need to make that poor farmer or that poor customer in the last village a profitable offering for the bank. So the impediments to this reaching this financial inclusion are IIT, not the institutes, but information, incentives, and transaction costs. We need to make all these three pillars lower of a hurdle for banks or NBFCs to penetrate the market. Another problem he states for achieving true financial inclusion is that he says we focus too much on expanding the credit, not much on easing the payments and remittances, savings, and sort of easy insurances for people who actually need it. The average person still has to go through all those hassles if he is not well informed to make a simple deposit. That is where the true challenge lies. Now everyone is talking about free markets, their advantages. He is also a believer of the free market enterprise. He says that true competition truly eliminates the need for planners. For as gravity guides the water through the shortest path, competition naturally guides the economy to the most productive route. But without intervention or that guiding framework, we get the competition of the jungle, in which the strong preys on the weak. That is not the true growth story any economy would like to achieve. Hence, the central bank is required to provide that guiding framework. Now, democracy treats every individual equally, with every adult getting one vote. But the free enterprise system, by contrast, empowers the consumers based on their income and property. So, what, according to him, dampened the India success story? He says that the fiscal and monetary stimulus injected post the 2008 crisis for growth led to inflation, as the world did not really slip into depression. Land or mineral wealth, which was cheap in the past, which meant there were very little reward to misallocate them, now suddenly became scarce, and the value of these resources skyrocketed, meaning it was ripe for corruption. Another thing he says that the biggest mistake all sides make is to treat the RBI governor as just another bureaucrat. As we talked in the last video as well, the RBI governor is the primary manager of macroeconomic risk in the country. But how does this cycle of poor politicians and the businessmen work in India? He says that the poor needs the politician for jobs and services. The politician needs the businessman to provide funds for patronage to the poor and fight the elections. And the businessman needs the politician to get the public resources and contracts cheaply. And the politician needs the poor for votes, thus maintaining the status quo. Now let us talk about the importance of opportunity. He says that with almost everyone at the same boat in IIT, for the first time in our lives, we got a chance to bat and bowl in the nets instead of being posted at deep long to retrieve the odd six hit by the stars. This is how I think sports and good institutions provide that opportunity to everyone to succeed. And this is important for any economy or a country to really weed out the stars and propel it forward. Now let us understand how money really flows around the RBI or any central bank. He says that the RBI does not pay any interest on its liabilities. The liabilities of RBI are public currency and its deposits to the banks, but it generates interest on its assets. What are the assets of the RBI? It is government and foreign bonds. So the total cost of printing and banker commissions is approximately 1/7 of the interest income that it generates on its assets. After setting aside the money needed for equity capital to maintain credit worthiness, which is he mentioned approximately 10 lakh crores, the RBI pays the remaining surplus to the government to stimulate the economy. In his tenure, the RBI paid 66,000 CR to the government of India. Now, the importance of debt recovery. He says that we have too many sick firms and very few sick promoters. Understand this. The companies are weak, but the people are not. This is why he says that so the price for growth is immense, whereas the penalty for default is either very weak or weakly executed. Now, with this talk of high incentives and low penalties, let's come to investment managers. He says that investment managers have largely displaced banks and re-intermediated themselves between individuals and the markets. Since the individual like you and me does not really invest direct in the market, but it invests via mutual funds, insurance companies, pension funds, etc. So as competition between these investment managers increases, each one attempts to take a lot more risk for higher reward to assure the customer of a better performance. They also do this since, as we mentioned, incentives for a higher return are very high, but the penalty is not so stern for a downside. So the investment manager is supposed to take care of two things: his beta or the systemic risk of the markets, and his alpha, the value addition that he brings to the investment process. So always ensure you check about your fund manager via any way that you are entering into markets. Now to close, there are two key takeaways from my personal learning on this book. The first is, he says that while observers may be impatient, but my belief is that steady and irreversible reforms and sustained mini banks rather than a big bang is the need of the hour. And the second, we all get caught up in checks and balances to ensure our process is airtight, but he also says that we must ensure a balance of checks as well.